Hello there, everybody, fellow YouTubers and model builders and ship buffs alike. This is Commodore Urban here with another model review for you. Now, a lot of people have been talking about, here lately about the model kits that Airfix is re-releasing, such as, the Queen Elizabeth and the Mauretania and such. And so I kind of want to do this review here because of that, and I want to review to you Airfix's 1/600 scale model of the Mauretania. Now this one here being, I believe this one's from 1980, so unlike the new ones which are molded in gray plastic, this one was molded in white plastic, so it was easier to paint. Now on the front of the box it says RMS Mauretania 1/600 model kit, and it's got Airfix right here. It's got a real pretty image of the legendary vessel. And here on the side here it says Airfix Products Limited 1980, made in Japan, printed in Japan in Series 4. Whatever Series 4, but here's the weird thing. On the ends of the box, it's in Japanese. And this here too is in Japanese here too on this side of the box. And this right here was Gunzi Zanyo, which later became Mr. Hobby. So when you open up the box, I actually still have the instructions, and the instructions are also in Japanese. So I couldn't really read it. I just had to kind of follow the diagrams and stuff, which is pretty basic, straightforward. And a little bit of history about the kit. The kit originally was made in the mid-1960s as a line of ocean liner model kits were released by Airfix, including the Queen Elizabeth, later the Queen Elizabeth II, the Great Western, the Canberra, and there were several in the France. There were several models released. Anyway, a little history for you there. And here is the Mauretania completely finished here, and this is what she would appears as. See, there's the front, there's the bow. I'll flip it this side here, and I'll show you the stern and the ship, and you can see the name Mauretania if you look very carefully right there. Now a little history about this ship here. The Mauretania, unlike her sister ship, the Lusitania, was built in England versus in Scotland by the Swan and Hunter and Wigham Richardson shipyards of Newcastle upon Tyne, England. She was 790 feet overall, and she was just slightly faster than the Lusitania, capturing the blue ribbon from her several times until finally capturing it for good in 1909. And from 1909 to 1929, the Mauretania was the speed queen of the North Atlantic and the holder of the blue ribbon. But what made this ship very characteristic of the ocean greyhounds of the time was the sleek, slender prow. Unlike a lot of modern ships, there was no flare to the bow. So when the ship would go through heavy seas, all that water wouldn't wash off the sides. It would literally dive onto the ship. And there was one storm the Mauretania had went through where her spare anchor was dislodged and was, causing havoc all over the deck until they had to relash it down. But she served in transatlantic service from 1907 until the start of World War I, where she was requisitioned as a hospital ship, and after the need for her as a hospital ship kind of became unnecessary, she was requisitioned as a troop ship. It was during the times when she was a troop carrier where she did the most good for Great Britain. And after World War II, she was converted to burn oil instead of the coal. And she had from the late teens to about the late 20s, where she was still in full service until 1929, when a newer, more advanced ship, the SS Bremen out of Germany, captured the blue ribbon away from the Mauretania. Now, don't get me wrong, the Mauretania did her best to take the blue ribbon back, but because the Bremen was a more technically advanced ship, Mauretania couldn't do it, even though she had beaten her old record several times, but she could not come close to the Bremen's record. So, and from 1929 until about the mid-1930s, she was still in service, but in secondary service. So finally, her last few years, she was painted all white and was used for what were considered booze cruises to the middle of nowhere because of American Prohibition. And finally, in 1935, she was sold off for scrap, and she made it to Scotland, where she docked for the final time, and she was dismembered and dismantled after that. But yeah, a legendary liner with a legendary life. And now for my review of the model, I would say for the paintability, for like painting the model, since this one was a white plastic kit, I will give it a 9, because it was very easy to paint and very easy to get it done. Now the putability, or the putting it together, I will give it about a 7, because some parts of this ship are a little bit harder to put together than some. Like the deck piece here, the stern piece here, that's not a short piece. That piece goes from like here. I'll show you. That piece goes from like here to about halfway there, and that's one long piece. And that was a little bit hard to poke in there in these upper decks. If you have to kind of massage them in place to get them to fit right, either than that. These little vent cap things, they had little stud things that went to the holes, but the holes weren't molded all the way, so I had to cut the little stud things off and just glue them on top in their normal places. And not these, though. The holes for these big vent caps, the ventilators were fine, they worked. And that was the main distinctive feature between the Mauretania and the Lusitania. There actually was two. The Lusitania had hinge top vents. They were called cam vents, and they made her look more sleeker, made her look taller than her sister. But really, in reality, they were the same height. And Mauretania had these traditional cowl vents, which are like big giant scoops, big wind scoops. And that's why she's got this kind of a cluttered appearance here. And another thing that was more with the Mauretania, all of her windows were basic squares, while the Lusitanias, they were rounded a bit at the top and at the bottom. And those are two main distinctive features. That and the bridge front. The Mauretania's has got more curves in it. The Lusitania is just basically kind of a curved wall, versus the Mauretania, which she's got a curved wall here, but her bridge, it goes in this pattern here. Either than that, they're basically based on the same principal designs and stuff. And we believe, and historians stuff believe there was a little bit differences between the two ships, engine room wise and such, but we really don't know that for sure. But overall, the Airfix 1/600 scale model of the Mauretania is actually a very fascinating build of a very legendary ship with a legendary career. And if you find one, you definitely should get one. If you can get one of the older ones, definitely get it. I mean, if you have to pay a little bit more money for it, definitely do it, because if you get the gray plastic one, which I actually got the new Queen Elizabeth model, and it was molded in the same gray plastic, and it was a pain in the ass to paint. So anyway, like I said, overall, I give the Airfix Mauretania model a 2 thumbs up, and a 10 overall for basic, pretty good model itself. So, well, I hope you enjoyed my model review and a little bit of history on this great noble ship. And if you like it, please hit like, and leave comments below for me. I'd love to read them. And finally, if you love the channel, hit the like button, or hit the subscribe button. Sorry. And until next time, this is Commodore Urban here saying, have smooth seas and fair skies, and happy sailing.